who's also at UNSW School of Photovoltaics. So Gavin has a research group working on advanced concepts in photovoltaics, hot carrier, solar cells, quantum dot solar cells, photovoltaic applications in space, and photoelectrolysis for solar fuels. Not my area, so difficult word to say.
Fair enough. Thank you, Lars, for that kind introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's very nice to be talking about our technology here in this workshop. So Ned's talk was a great introduction to mine. He was talking about some of the areas that we can contribute to here in our school in UNSW. But this is an example of one of those areas of technology that we can work in. So this is a talk or a project that my student Bohui Cheong worked on last year, or through this year. He wasn't able to come to present it today, but it's on combining antennas, patch antennas and solar cells in satellites, particularly in small satellites like Cubesat. So Joon is also heavily involved in this work, as is Ned in doing some of the calculations. So the motivation behind this work is that, of course, this is a CubeSat, and I want you to notice in particular the antenna here. So the deployable antenna, which have caused a lot of the problems that occurred with the deployment of the satellites back mid last year. So this is something we might be able to solve this problem in particular. So having trouble scrolling through. Sort of come out and go in again. One way of doing it. Here we go. Okay. So the problem of antenna, directional antenna, deploying, requiring or leading to the problem that the satellites couldn't be contacted, could be a big issue, well, it certainly was a big issue. One possibility to get around this is that instead of having a high-gain antenna which has to be deployed, if a patch antenna, which is omnidirectional, can be used, then that could be used to contact the satellite and possibly be used for receiving signals, if not for transmitting signals. Patch antennas are very different to directional antennas. They are just a single metal sheet. They're not omnidirectional, but the idea is to try and design them so they have as isotropic radiation profile as possible. And they can be much more omnidirectional than directional satellite antenna. Of course, CubeSats also have very limited area, as do most satellites actually, but in particular on CubeSats. And so a technology which can utilize that area more effectively by combining two different purposes is very interesting. And that's the possibility there is combining the solar cell area with the antenna area, integration of antennas and solar cells. So what are the possibilities there? Well, combining the two types of or device, very different types of operation, of course, either requires two different devices or integration of the whole thing into a single device. At the moment, we're just looking at integrating two different devices, and to do that, we need to have one on top of the other, essentially. So one way of doing that is to have the patch antenna as a conductor, but a transparent conductor. And this is an example of a transparent conductor. It's to do with doped oxides, such as Indium Tin oxide, which is conductive and transparent. So this can be placed on top of the solar cell and give rise to the necessary properties. So alternatively, instead of that, we can also have a transparent conductor, which is a mesh, essentially a mesh of wires, which of course lets some light through, but also has a certain conductivity. And so that's another alternative way of doing it. We're focusing at the moment on the TCO approach, and doing some simulation on this work, in particular using ANSYS HFSS simulator and also Sonic software. And this is the bulk of Bohui's work. We can calculate the resonant frequency of such an antenna using these equations, and it essentially depends on the dimensions of the antenna. And so let's have a certain limit to the size of antenna that we can fit onto a CubeSat. This is a 10 by 10 centimetre one that's being modelled in this case. It could go larger to change the resonant frequency. Of course, what we're interested in is the both the resonant frequency, but also the gain on the antenna, how well it transmits or receives signals. This is a simulation of of a normal patch antenna using a layer of a metal sheet, so an opaque metal sheet, a normal patch antenna, which has a resonant frequency around 440 megahertz for this particular shape and size. And the radiation pattern looks something like this. So we have a gain of up to 5 dB here in the x direction. It varies. It's not isotropic, but it has a range of gain over that area. So this is the base load, the base example, if you like. We're interested in how that might be modified in a transparent or an ITO conductor or antenna. And the first thing is that the resonant frequency is very different. It's much less controllable, and it's jumping around all over the place. So that's one issue. That's due to the reduced conductivity and the much greater resistance in the transparent ITO. And then also looking at the gain picture as well, that's another important part of it. Here we can see, whilst the diagram looks similar, this picture looks similar, it's actually a much lower gain. We're right down at minus 2 dB here, so negative gain. So obviously not a good result here. And the directionality is also, again, non-isotropic. But we can see that the X and Y directions are the strongest, but still negative gain. So this is definitely an issue. So by moving to this transparent antenna, we've definitely got a problem with the performance of the antenna. The other side of the equation, though, is the solar cell underneath. And the main ones we're looking at are triple junction solar cells. As Ned was saying, they're now the workhorse of the space power industry. Gallium indium phosphide, gallium arsenide germanium solar cells. And importantly, so the stack looks something like this, as Ned showed, and they're stacked on top of each other, and importantly, connected in series. So we have a series connection all the way through here. It's much, much easier to make devices that way, and they perform better if they're connected in series in this way. And it looks something like this. So that's an example of one of these cells. So the important question is, how is that performance changed when you stick a transparent conductor on front, an ITO front layer? This is the transmission profile for indium tin oxide as compared to just normal glass. And so we can see there's, particularly in the infrared region, there's significant decrease in the transmission in that case. This is the summary of the optical losses in such a device. And again, we can see big losses due to reflection and absorption in the infrared part of the spectrum as compared to a standard layer with anti-reflective coating on it. So, okay, so that does seem that there's going to be a lot of reduction in performance. But the important thing is to compare how a solar cell would actually perform. And these are some simulations carried out with software that we utilise in design in the school and being used for doing lots of these types of simulations. And this is the performance of the solar cell. So that we can see this is the solar cell under normal illumination conditions, AM0 conditions. There's, as it would be in space, just the orbit of the Earth. So they have performance of the 3 different subcells here, the gallium indium phosphide on top, the gallium arsenide, and then the germanium cell at the bottom. And notice that there's a much bigger component coming from the germanium at the bottom. This is also shown in the current voltage curves here, in that this is the germanium here with a much bigger current than the other two. And the combination of all 3 gives rise to this efficiency curve here. And the efficiency comes in about here somewhere. Towards that 27% efficiency. When we do the same calculation, thank you, Lance, the same calculation for the cell filtered with an ITO transparent conductor in front, we see a decrease across the current for all 3 elements of the cell, but in particular a big decrease for the germanium. And again, looking at the IV curves, it's the germanium which is really reduced in current. But this device is still limited by the gallium arsenide cell. I mentioned these are connected in series. And that's important because that means that the current has to be the same through each of the cells. So, therefore, in a device such as this, even though you've got a lot of current in the germanium cell, the current is limited by the lowest current that's being produced in over the cells. So it's limited by the gallium arsenide here. The same applies down here with the ITO cell. So although we've got a big reduction in the light going through the germanium cell, it's actually not very badly affected because the germanium had spare current anyway, which is a design problem with the solar cells, but it turns out to be an advantage in this particular case. So we've got a much smaller reduction in efficiency than we'd expect to get if it was just due to the amount of light being reduced. And it's down at 23% efficiency, 21% efficiency, sorry. Which is not too big a drop, so much better than we thought it would be. So to conclude, we've looked at possibility of combined antennas and solar cells for small area satellites, and looked at the power losses, or the gain losses in the antennas and also the power losses in the solar cells. There's a lot more further work that can be done on optimizing both the thickness and the proportion of components in the ITO antennas to improve the gain and not lose any more efficiency in the solar cells. So with that, I'll thank you for your attention. Thank you.